Okay, team, today I'm going to go through another slab technique that's called hump or slump molding. And what hump and slump molding is using a slab of clay, again, a sheet of clay that's all the same thickness throughout. And now we're going to be utilizing things that exist in the world around us, plates, bowls, forms that are meant for molding, to create a shape of a plate or a bowl or a little dish. You could see that this little dish was molded around the bottom of this cup or this glaze container. We've got this rectangular dish that was molded around this form here. And then once it gets leather hard, it takes on the shape of what you've put on or in it. And the only difference between hump and slump molding is whether you're using the interior of the item or object or form or the exterior. The interior is going to be slump and the exterior is going to be hump. And I like to think of like a humpback whale or the hump on a camel. That helps me remember which one is it that I'm going to be using. So what I have here today are some materials, which includes a slab that I've already rolled out. It's all the same thickness throughout. I'm going to take a moment to clean up my slab. It's always easier to clean up your slab when it's flat because you could give some gentle pressure and use the table underneath it to really clean up that slab of clay. Now, of course, you're going to get the chance to choose your favorite area of the slab and then trim it out where you want it. So when it's coming to the point where you're ready to determine what form or plate or bowl you're going to use, remember that you can cut your slab any shape. It could be the shape of a star, a heart, or just a circle. And you're going to utilize something around the room. There's plates, there's bowls up in the front table. Underneath the front table are some dishes, some serving dishes, all kinds of different things. So you could go on a little bit of a hunt to find something that you might like. I'm going to show you two different ones here so that you could get an idea of sort of process. But simply for this one, I like to place the form on my slab, and just by using a fettling knife, I'll put some gentle pressure with my left hand, and I simply will trim around the form. Of course, because it's an already made object, it really helps with being able to cut a nice clean rectangle. And then once I remove the excess and I gently pick this up, you're going to see that I have a nice clean square or rectangle that I'm going to use to form it. Now again, once you cut it, it's a good opportunity to kind of give some gentle cleanup. A little sponge along the edges is going to go a long way to really help kind of clean up those edges, make them look nice and neat. Any imperfections that the knife may have caused, you can kind of work out a little bit until you're ready for it to begin to be molded. Now, like with all slabs, there are certain things you want to do when it's really soft and certain things you want to wait to do for it to firm up a little bit. When it comes to hump and slump molding, you definitely want to roll your slabs when the clay is really soft and cut it when it's really soft, and then maybe even let it set up just a couple of minutes before you try to mold it. This clay is really soft, susceptible to nearly any imperfection, and so giving it a few minutes does help to getting a cleaner result. I'll give this one a minute or two to set up, and I'll come over here to show another one so that you could see a wide variety of examples. So let's say I wanted to use this form. A form is something that is made to put clay into to take the shape of that form. So in this case, it is obviously a bowl-like shape. And by putting clay inside of there, you're going to be able to create that type of shape. Let's say I wanted to use a cookie cutter for this one. It's a clean result. For these guys, I like to take the sponge around these edges, kind of clean up any bits that might be dried on there that can maybe press in and give you kind of an ugly circle. But you could see just by cleaning it up, I've got a nice clean circle that then when I press down and I give a little twist and then pull up on it, you can see that I now have a nice clean disc. I'll gently put my thumb on the inside and just very slowly with gentle pressure start to go around the edge and push out that disc that I just cut. So now you can see I've got a nice clean circle. And again, good opportunity to go around the edges just really gently, work off any kind of imperfections that may have been caused by the cookie cutter or by the clay itself, and give it a good cleanup, both sides. Give it a good gentle cleanup. The sponge does such a good job of smoothing out that clay. So now let's say I wanted to use this form. Now when it comes to the surface of what it is you're using to mold, it's really important to know what kind of material it's made out of. Things like paper or this plaster mold are going to be great for forming because those objects pull moisture out. If you're using something made of plastic, of glass, or of ceramic, it is very challenging to get your item off of those types of materials because what happens is the clay builds up sort of it sort of suctions itself to it. So in that case, you're going to want to place a plastic bag underneath your clay. I'll show you that in a moment, so that your project doesn't get stuck to what you're using to mold it. So in this example here, I'm using this mold, so I'm going to gently place it as close to center as I can. And then I'm just going to take a damp sponge and just really gently adding some pressure all the way around and utilizing the mold for what it is made for, which is essentially to mold your clay into a bowl-like shape. So you could see very easily by cutting out a perfect circle and placing it on the center of this little mold guy. Once I let that set up a little bit, once it gets leather hard and once it loses moisture, it's going to easily come out of there, and then I'm going to have a little dish from using the plaster mold. I'll do one more where I'll utilize this one so I could show you the difference when you need to use a plastic. What I might suggest is to utilize something around the room that already exists that you can use as a guide. Let's say I wanted to use the exterior of this bowl and simply trim around it. So now I have a bowl shaped disc that, again, I could take that sponge and clean up any imperfections that may have been caused by multiple cut lines. And once these firm up a bit, you'll also have some time and opportunity to really detail them. So in this particular wetness, just do the bare minimum of what's possible while that clay is still really soft, and clean it all up. So in the event that you're using a plastic item, I do encourage putting a plastic bag in between so that you have a way to remove it and it doesn't get suctioned on there. So again, metal, ceramic, or plastic are usually the three main materials that you want to be wary of. So now I can take my disc and again go at it from a top view, kind of adjust as needed to try to get it as close to center as possible. Then putting gentle pressure on the top, I can start to use now the hump mold method. So the first one was slump because it went inside the mold. This one is hump because we're using the outside of an object. Now clay is going to take a little while to start to take on the shape that you're wanting it to, so just be patient, gentle movements, get some moisture in there. Be patient with the process of your clay ultimately starting to take on the shape of what's underneath it. So you can continue to push that down. And you could see here, once this were to set up, ultimately it's taking on a bowl-like shape. And when I turn it over, it would be a bowl. So that's the hump mold method using a plastic bowl. Now for our final one, I'll come back to the rectangle that I cut first. And again, I'm gonna gently remove it from the table. I'm gonna go right above the mold. I'm gonna make adjustments, trying my best to get it as close to center as possible so that all my walls are nice and even. And once I feel good about where I have it positioned, same process, you're going to just really gently press those edges down to conform to the shape underneath it. So you could just keep going until it ultimately takes on the shape of whatever it is you're using to mold it. In this case, we're working on a rectangular dish that ultimately looks like this. And it's very easy to accomplish if you go about the process the correct way. And again, slabs just are very, very fragile. You don't want to do too much to them. And the more clean that you cut out your shape, the cleaner your ultimate project is going to be. You could see that this is a perfect circle because I used the circle cutter. This is a perfect rectangle because I used the form underneath it to help cut it. So you get the idea. You could see how ultimately, once I give this time to set up, I'll be able to remove it, wait for it to get leather hard, and then I could decorate to my liking. I can carve into it, I could attach three-dimensional objects, I can press a word or some letters into it, I could add a texture, I could do all kinds of fun things. So hump and slump molding is a great way to make little dishes, platters, all kinds of fun things by utilizing things around you. So all of the options are up in the front of the room. You can go shopping, find something that you are liking, and then at this point, we would just let it sit for a while. It'll be very obvious once it's lost some moisture. It'll firm up a little bit, and when you go to remove it from the form, whether it's in or on an item, when you go to remove it, it'll be held up, it'll keep its shape, and you'll be able to detail it and add your decorations. That is hump and slump molding.